Hey family, Torsten T's Guitars, how are you today? Thought today we talk about what's needed in order to do a setup for somebody who's just starting out. Hey, I'm tired of taking my guitar to the music store and waiting 7 to 10 days to do fix something simple. We're talking about things like doing string changes, or you got sharp frets. Maybe your frets are real gritty. You just got your guitar's been sitting in a warehouse for a year or so. Um, every time you do a bend, your nuts pinging, that little pinging sound. A basic setup, maybe fixing your intonation, sticky tuners, oiling the fretboard, leveling the frets, things like that. We're not going to get into how we do those things. We're just going to talk about the tools that we need to do those things. So, as you guys know, or some of you know, or may not know, we do sell a toolkit on our websites, www.teesguitars.com. You can check it out there. They are available. I think it's $38.99, something like that, free shipping. But let's get into that toolkit. I'm going to show you, and here's the pluses and the minuses of that toolkit, right? So I'm going to show you this toolkit here. So this is what you get. So we'll go through the things that we can use. Some of the things I don't use. My acoustic guitars, I would never put these type of strings on there. So those to me are garbage. There's a little polishing thing on here. It's kind of small for me. Same thing, with the little string pegs. Wouldn't use that. Okay, so what would I use in this kit, right? So one of the best tools in this kit is the string action ruler. Okay, I'm going to put this back up for us now as we get going through this. So you get a string action ruler with this, and this is used to gauge or to measure how high your strings are off. It comes in metric and in inches, or standard, American standard. How high the strings are, each individual string you can check. You can check the what your string height is on your low and your high E strings at the 12th fret, things like that. So great tool to have. You can also use it to check the level of your frets. Okay, so that's a great tool to have. Cutters for cutting strings. It's so much easier to well, first of all, most of the guitars that you buy that are import guitars are going to come with steel. They're going to come with steel strings. The steel strings that come on your guitar, if you have nickel frets, the strings, if you just don't change them, they'll wear your frets a lot better than if you used a nickel. Nickel on nickel is better than steel on nickel, is all I can say to that. But regardless, if you just want a different string height, or a different set of strings on your guitar, which I change all the strings on all my guitars when I get them. You don't have to, but again, cutters, and these last for quite a while, so they're pretty good. I've used them for a while. One of the other tools that you get here. So in these little toolkits, they refer to these as nut files. Okay, these are actually, they're not nut files. You can use them as nut files. I've used them as nut files for years. Okay, and they're great for just little cleanups in the nuts and things like that. But they're actually torch tip cleaners for like an acetylene torch. You just, if your tip is clogged, this is what you would do. Depending on the size of your tip, you would go in there. They're little tiny files. They're little tiny round files. So they do work. You can use them. I don't use them anymore, but they do work. Okay, so you can get away with that. Feeler gauges, again, this is great for checking the string height, and what kind of clearance you have between your string and your frets and things like that. So really good tool to have there. The radius gauges. Again, if you want to see what the radius is on your neck, and so you know how to set the string height and things like that, that's what you're going to need, and so that comes with that. Most guitars today come with Allen wrenches. You get a set of Allen wrenches in with this. You're going to need Allen wrenches to do the neck relief on your guitar. Sanding sponge, right? You get a sanding sponge. This thing's got two sides on it. It's if I had to put a grit of sandpaper on here, I'd probably say it's between 200 and 2 to 300. Okay, so we use that. Then you've got a little fret eraser. That's a great little tool to have as well. And you have fret guides. Okay, and these are handy to do as well, or handy to have as well. Highly recommended that they use these when you're doing fret work, so you don't scratch up your fingerboard as you're doing things like that, right? Polishing frets and whatnot. Then you get a whole bunch of fret files, right? You get 10 different fret files. Out of all these fret files, I can tell you right now that you can take this flat fret here, this flat file, right? It's just a real flat, it's just a straight up flat file. That one I keep and I use. This real tiny pointy one, I use that one. And the rest of these, I don't ever use. Okay, so again, 8 files and I don't know. String winder, this beats the heck out of doing this with your fingers. And then you've got a cool little polishing tool here that'll get all the little grit and grime out between your strings on your you know where your bridge is and your between your bridge and your pickups and things like that. Gets all the grit out of there. It's pretty cool too. All right, so for the majority of things you can use in this kit to get you started and you'll be okay. The one thing that's not in this kit, we also sell these. It's a fretboard ruler. And that's going to be to where you can check your neck relief on there. If you don't have a fretboard ruler, you're going to need a fretboard ruler. So some of the other things that we're going to need, okay, just as basic necessity tools, is you're going to need a rag. I have one for oil. I have one for polishing. They're just microfiber cloths. Those work out really good. You're going to need a screwdriver, right? And I have flathead and I have a Phillips. I have large and small of both, which is a really good deal. 5 and below, a yoga mat. So I roll this out just like so, and my guitar body sits down here in the flat part and my neck sits up here, okay? 5 and below. I'm telling you, man, you don't need to get all fancy and things like that. It's just what I use, and it rolls up and puts away easy, so you're keeping whatever you're working on, your desk, it's clean, or your workbench. Where'd that go? Okay, and we all get these little neck braces in our guitars when we get them, and I didn't go out and spend the $25 on a neck support. I used my painter's tape, which by the way is another necessity to have, and for so many reasons. This stuff is really good. I just taped it up and I use that as an additional support if I need the guitar a little bit higher than just what the yoga mat will give me, right? So some of the other things that I've done, so just to give you an idea, we were talking about the files. I only use these 2 files, right, out of that kit. Well, I have a fret file that I bought from StewMac, and it was, I'm going to guarantee you, it was at least $28-$29. So there's $30 on one file, and I've already got 3 out of these. So, and this file is great. I need it. I can't use anything directly on my frets, as far as these files go. Okay, they're just, all the files in this kit, I believe, are too coarse. Okay, they're just too coarse, and they'll ruin your frets, and so you don't want to mess with that. So get yourself and invest in a good fret end file or fret file, and you'll be good to go on that. We talked about the cutters that are in there. Those are great cutters. You could probably get about maybe 15-20 string changes in them before the cutters fail. So I got some Music Nomad cutters, again, $25, $25, something like that. And these I've had for quite a while now. So I use those. The actual string winder, those are great. I'm super lazy, so a little skill saw, right? I mean, it's skill saw. A little skill handheld drill. It's a USB charging port on it. That's definitely the way to go on that deal. We put the cutters over there. We talked about those torch tips, right? These little things here. Those are great. Okay, they work. You can use them. I will say this, and this is not promoted. I'm not being promoted by Music Nomad or anything like that. I use a lot of their products because they ship fast. They're not cheap. But I can be guaranteed that they work. So I have this little kit here. I have a big kit, but I don't want to drag that all the way over here. And it's got 16 files in it. This one has 6 in it, and these are nut files. Okay, and these things are just, I swear by them. They're really nice files. They're nice and wide to hold, and when you are recutting a nut, it's simple, it's straight, you're right on the money on this. Those little nut files, you're gonna have an issue if you've got to cut a nut, okay, or you've got to cut a new slot in a nut. So that's one of the things that we do there. Another tool that I use that I get handy, and you can get these on Temu, you can get them on eBay, or yeah, you can get them on eBay, you can get them on Amazon. And it's just it's a simple set of calipers, right? Digital calipers. Works real good, and it gives me neck width, nuts, things like that. It's a good tool to have. You're not going to use it every time you do a setup, or rarely, but you know, we get a lot of people. I do a lot of designing and things like that. We do a lot of research on our guitars, and we get a lot of questions asking. So I have to grab that, and I have to check it for people. And you know, how deep is the neck pocket? What's the thickness at the 15th fret instead of the 12th fret? You know, so I just check that I have it. Great tool to have. Painter's tape. I'm telling you right now, man, painter's tape is the ticket too. So, you know, I showed you the fret guides. The fret guides are great, but I actually use tape instead of the fret guides, and I'll tell you why. Sometimes I use both, but just painter's tape is the way to go with this, because when you're using the fret guide, you put it over the fret, your fretboard is still exposed. If you're using steel wool on your frets, or you're using sandpaper on your frets, I can guarantee you that that's going to get down on your fretboard, and it's going to make it dirty and black, right? It's going to make it dirty and black. I don't have a fretboard ruler. You got to have a fretboard ruler. Or you should have a fretboard ruler. You can use a straight edge of some sort if you'd like. I do it by hand pretty much, but I got to be in the ballpark. And for the ballpark, what I do is I use a pneumatic gauge. And that puts me within a thousandth or two of where I need to be at from the first fret to the 12th fret. And this sits down in the middle right there, and it gives me an accurate reading to the thousandth of where my neck relief is at. So I can get it within, you know, 1 or 2 thousandths, and then I use my fingers. I put one finger at the end of here, I can show you. I put one finger right here at the end of the fingerboard. Then I'll put one at the first. I'll put one right here at the fifth, and then I can look and I can feel, right? And I can see where I'm at here. And I'll do the same thing up here, and I'll see if there's a big difference, right? And so I can do it by feel, just because I've done it so many times. If you don't, that's why you need the neck relief ruler. So we've got that. Another thing that I like to have on hand too, and this is just because they're just cool to have, and when you're doing anything on your tuning machines, you know, you're going to need the little screwdriver, and you're also going to need some wrenches. I get these, I think they were $15 on Temu, something like that. Critical, right, is I use Polytune tuners, okay? They're not cheap, but they're great, okay? And you can do, and it's just a great tuner to have. If you have a tuner like this, okay, this will not work for you when you're doing setup work, okay? So you can drop that, you can throw that away. It's just not good. Don't spend $5 on a tuner. I'm not sure if I remember how much this was. It was either 50 or it was 90, and I'm probably going to think that it was 90, but very, 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 very well spent money on this tuner. I use it for absolutely everything, and you can intonate your guitars with this tuner and get it really, really, really close. Okay, so great tuner to have. Polytune again. Some of the other stuff that we have. This is the bad stuff, right? Steel wool. 0000 steel wool is what you want to use on a guitar. You don't want to use, you know, anything heavier than that. And that equates to about 3,000 grit sandpaper. So when I'm doing fretwork on these, okay, I start by taking the grit off of my frets with that sanding block or a sanding sponge. I don't know if I have any here. Yeah, this one's quite used, right? But these little pink sanding sponges, I get these packs of 60 of them for like $8 on Amazon, and they ship out to me the same day. I get them, you know, a day or two later. If you got a woman in your life, or you know, another good thing to use these for is fixing up your nails, because as guitar players, we got to kind of keep our nails, you know, in a decent fashion there. And I'm talking about a manicure, pedicure. If you do that, you do that. I do that, but I do that for other reasons. It just makes me feel good. So again, sanding sponge, 600 grit, and then from 600 grit we go to 800 or 1,000 grit. From 1,000 grit, I'll go to 1,500 grit. From 1,500, I'll go to 2,000, and then from 2,000, I'll go to 3,000, or I'll go to the I'll go to the steel wool, and I go to the steel wool. Okay, steel wool's a mess. It's very scary when you're working on guitar. So what you're going to want to do, because your pickups have magnets in them, and I promise you that if you don't tape off your pickups, you're going to have steel wool in your magnets. It's unavoidable. It's going to happen, and getting steel wool out of magnets is not fun. I mean, I'm talking magnifying glass tweezers in hours just to get that stuff out, and you have to take them out. It's just it's not worth it. So it's a lot easier just to tape off your whole. And I tape off the whole entire pick guard, man, from side to side. I don't care about spending a little money on tape, right? And that way I never have that issue with it whatsoever. I clean up my clean up my workspace from steel wool every time I use it with that yoga mat. I just have a little tool, you know, it's just a little magnet, and it's a pretty powerful. Like I just picked up this file with it, right, and that'll get all the steel wool off that you have. When I'm doing a setup, I put a napkin underneath, a paper towel underneath where I'm working at, so the steel wool falls down there and not even onto my yoga mat. But I will go over that, and so a magnet is a good idea to have. And let's see. The other couple of weeks ago, I had put up a post, and I had gotten one of these, right, and I got one from Music Nomad, and it was a lot nicer than this one is. This one's a little flimsy and it's a little bent up and things like that. It was kind of a pain to do. And the only thing that I found this good for was doing this, right? This. And this one was 18 bucks. I thought, oh man, it looks a lot like the Music Nomad one, and the Music Nomad one was like 50 bucks. So what I did is, so I take this like this, and when I'm doing a fret level, right, I'm just going to use this so I'm not marking up my fretboard, and you just go along and go along and go along, right? So it saves you a little time from having to tape off every fret. And then I just take a little block that I got, right? This is a sanding block. Again, you can get these on Amazon. They're cheap, 8-10 bucks. And then you're gonna go over your frets. And what we're looking for is are we leaving are my frets level, in other words? Is there any black left? Any Sharpie left on these frets? And there you have it. And there's not. So we're good as far as that goes. But little sanding block is a great tool to have, I promise you. And where's my other? I've got a sanding. There it is. There it is. So this is one of the best tools that I've got, right? And I use it quite often. You can see it's dirty and everything else, but I use it a lot. And what this is, it's a file bevel. It's a beveled file block for sharp fret ends. And this doesn't just take off the sharp fret ends, it actually cuts into the wood a little bit, shortens the fret end, so you've got a gap of the end of the fret and the end of the fretboard. And that's a simple little deal. So if you don't want to, every year, you know, I live in New York, and every year I have to redo my frets. This thing right here, it takes enough of everything off to where I don't have to do them again this winter, right? This coming up winter, I won't have to do these again. They'll be fine, just fine. You can spend money on these, or again, this one right here, I think I got it. It was $18 or something like that. Very, very, very good investment. So we got the tool, we got that. Some of the materials that the Sharpie is a must, right? Here's another handy tool that I found. That's kind of, for me, it's a must, just because I take off a lot of pickguard film. And that's just a little X-Acto knife, man. That's, you know, nothing more than that. And it gets in between the knobs and things like that, so you can get all the plastic out, and your knobs aren't, you know, hung up on the plastic that's underneath there. And it's also it's easier to find the corners. It's easier to find the corners. So we've got steel wool, we've got that, we've got the wrenches. So we talked about the 3-in-1 oil, or we're talking about the 3-in-1 oil. I use these from the Machine Head tuners, and I just take a drop on a Q-tip, which I have in my kit as well, and then I'll just run it around the tuners. I'll get the rubbers, I'll get it down in there, and then I'll work all that in again before I put new strings on there. F1 oil, I get this from Music Nomad. Great stuff, lasts a long time, and it gives you your fretboard the moisture that it needs. If it's a maple, they also make it for rosewood fretboards. And this stuff here, right? Tune It. So Tune It is one of those things that like I used to use Vaseline, and it works. I don't know if this has any kind of chemicals in there that aren't corrosive, but I just went ahead and spent the money on it. It's a few dollars, but it's worth it. And they give you this neat little tool, and what you're gonna do is you just put that down in there. You get a little bit on it, and you can lube your string trees. Oops, here, we'll get you up here where you can see. You can lube your string trees with this thing, and you also get into the nut. You lube your nut, right? All this is for tuning stability. And then as well as your saddles, you put a little bit of this in your saddles. Great, it works. Okay, it definitely works. I think one of the last things that I recommend that you get is I have this ultra thin water-like, right? This is Starbond, I believe. Yeah, Starbond, super thin. You got CA Bond or whatever you want. To fix a nut. If you've got something that's pinging and you got to file it out, and then you filed it a little too long, and you've actually got to go back through and you've got to fix that nut now because you filed it down too low, right? Well, this stuff here, you would tape off on this side and this side of the nut, right? And we would take this. All right, let me put this down here a little bit so you can see. So we would just do, I'll do this real quick for you. I'm not going to actually fix it, but I'll show you how I do it. Or how we do it, actually. And we're just going to tape this up, because getting super glue off of your fretboard is not cool, man. It's not fun. It takes a long time. So we're just going to do that. And we're going to take a little bit. We're going to put it on this side as well. Right? You want to make sure that there's no gap in there, and for that I take the back side of my little X-Acto knife here, and I'll put that down to where it's completely tight on that. Right? Then what I would do is just take this little nut powder. So this is for bone nuts, this is for plastic nuts. Comes in little bags like this, and and also for the black nuts, right? Ebony. And you take this little spoon here. This is going to remind some of you guys back in the 1980s. Right? Just kidding. And you're just going to put a little bit of that in there, right? We're not going to actually spend any of that. This will last for decades here. And then this comes with a little tips and things like that. Fine. And you're just going to take 1 drop of that, maybe 2 drops of that, and you're going to put that into your nut. You're going to let it sit for about 10, 15, 20 minutes, however long you feel. And then that nut file that came in your kit, right? This is how you do that, right? We take that, and we take that, and we take that side right there, and we can, now we have a perfectly nut, but there's no nut slot in it, so you can use your nut file. Okay, if you have a nut file, again, these work fantastic on that. You can get away with these. You can get away with these, okay? Again, it just, you got to be careful when you're doing it. It's time consuming when you have the little ones. When you have the Music Nomad ones, it's not time consuming at all. You just knock it out real quick. So I think that's everything that we covered. We got that, and that. And please don't be intimidated about working on your own guitar. I'm going to tell you something, man. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. You know, playing guitar is very rewarding, and working on your own stuff is very rewarding. You can see that you can get away with just using the kit and a fretboard ruler. You can also do what I did and have fun with it. But again, I do this a lot. So it makes sense for me to go out and buy a bunch of other tools. And as you get better at setting up your guitars, and there's plenty of books, there's plenty of YouTube videos to show you how to do each individual process step by step with a lot of really good luthiers and a lot of good people who know what they're talking about, right? I've got a good friend of mine. His name is Bill. He actually teaches people how to build guitars. And he's decided that over the summertime he's going to come by the house, and we're going to knock out a few videos here and there, and do some how-to videos on simple maintenance and things like that, how to fix the nut, how to level frets, how to polish stainless steel frets, things like that. It takes a little while, and hopefully that'll pass on some knowledge to you. But again, I just want to thank you guys for stopping by. Leave your comments in the link below, or in the comment section, and if you don't mind, subscribe, share, do all that other good stuff. And as always, family, rock on, and we'll see you next time, man.